You're listening to the PR Wind Down podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April White and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down.
Okay, so let's see. I have other chit chat, but none of it's appropriate for the podcast. So let's just start and see. Maybe Laura has something to say. Laura's not even listening. She didn't ask a question.
I don't know what you're talking about. Let's move into the...
So the horror story setup works great.
Oh,
I'll do it. That was a big sigh. I'll handle it.
It's a long one.
I'll do it. I got this. I got this. Okay, so for our horror story of the episode. Do not open until podcast. Hello, April and Laura. I'm writing because I think I'm messed up at work, and I want to know if you think it's something I could get over. Okay, to kind of paint a picture, I graduated from college in December with a PR major, and I gained some experience from doing an internship with a PR agency. It was mostly researching media lists and watering plants. I also wrote for the university paper for my junior and senior year. I am working at my first PR job, and I'm in the communications department at a pretty big company in San Francisco. I help with thought leadership for our CEO and CFO, and my boss handles the requests that we get from news outlets. I help with submitting our big bosses for awards and pitching some media and for contributed articles that an agency used to do before we stopped having an agency. I was working on pitching an article from our chief technology officer about the benefits of a certain kind of technology for telehealth. That's what the company does. I pitched it for a couple weeks and didn't hear back from anyone with a yes. So in my meetings with my direct boss, when she asked for updates, I just kept saying I didn't have any yet because I hadn't gotten the article accepted. We spent some time reworking the article author and the outlets I was emailing, and nothing was working. Then I mentioned casually that all I'd heard was rejections, and my boss seemed surprised, and she asked me why I told her no updates if I had been hearing rejections. I said I didn't think no was an update, and she seemed angry that I didn't tell her. She's having me respond to all of the no people to see if we can offer them something else. But a lot of time has passed since I got some of the no's. It makes sense now, but I didn't know before that I could do that. She hasn't assigned me any new projects since that happened, so I'm worried I did something really wrong. My questions are, how bad is this mistake? And how can I avoid doing mistakes when I'm pitching new things?
I don't think you did make a mistake.
I agree.
But, I mean, sure, you could write back to somebody who said no, but usually when you're pitching, this was a byline.
Yeah.
These people are getting,
no.
maybe up to, 50 pitches like yours from PR people. I know what the woman she works for is thinking, like, oh, we got a live one, like somebody actually read it and replied. So like, let's, glom onto them. And I've always thought that was the exact wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Because then they're going to be like, oh my God, get away. I'm never going to respond to you again. Unless you have some like, oh my God, I forgot to tell you that I have the most amazing news that's just breaking. But if you don't, like, what are you doing? You're just like making stuff up to make the person pay attention to you. I don't get it.
Yeah. Or something.
So do you have any other thoughts about like when you get a no? When do you push when you get a no? I guess because she wants to know how can she avoid doing mistakes when she's pitching new things.
So I think that in general, it's frowned upon to just ask reporters, hey, what are you working on? Unless you have a relationship already pre-existing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you offer to take them out to dinner or drinks or coffee or breakfast or lunch or whatever, right? And in that case, then that's a totally appropriate thing now. Like, hey, what are you working on? What do you usually look for? Because you're having a dialogue. But to just email somebody like, hey, why didn't my pitch work? That's like, right. Hey, why don't you know how to do your job? Like, that's what they would say back, right? Like,
right.
Something I can use. It's not my job to tell you how to do your job, right? I think it could end up backfiring pretty badly. So I would not recommend in general doing that.
There are times, yes. If you like have many clients, I worked in with an agency that all of their clients were in the same agency. So the reporters like knew them and knew the
Mhm.
clients and knew it. So once in a while we'd say something like, or if a new person started at one of the key publications, hey, Bob, congratulations on your new job at, Adweek. Wanted to see, what you're working on as you start your new job. Here are our clients that may apply to your new beat.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the end of the year and a couple of our clients have some, end of year or predictions for the new year as follows. Let me know if you're writing about any of this. And if they write back to you, then I think you'd say, is there anything else that you're focusing on as the year ends or the new year begins, right?
Hmm.
But to be like, here's an op-ed, and they're like, no thanks, and you're like, well, why not? Or, or well, what else? I mean,
No.
a lot of PR people, and again, it seems like so last century to be this way, get panicked when they don't have any feedback for the client. And so
Yeah.
somebody like that thinks that even saying no or whatever, like, well, they responded to us. Say, what would they say? Well, they all said no, but at least they responded to us. It's like, shut up. Like, that's nothing. But
It's
I see,
nothing.
I remember that stuff, that stuff used to happen. Like when you had
Yeah.
to call everybody too. Oh God, what was worse than
What did
having
they
to
not
call
like?
somebody? You knew you were pitching a dog and you had to call like 20 people and be like, "Hi, my name's Laura. I'm pitching this thing that you hate. Do you hate it? Yes, you hate it. Bye. Sorry." It was so bad. I don't even know how that worked. How we were just all on the phone, or maybe you were. I was on the phone.
I think I was a little later than you, so it was less of the phone disaster, but it still happened for follow-ups and stuff sometimes.
But the thing is now, since the pandemic, most of the phone numbers that are listed are like office phone numbers, and nobody's even in their office.
Yeah, no,
They don't even have like desk phones
no,
anymore either. So like,
no,
unless you
it's
have
bad.
somebody's personal cell phone, and then you better know them because they may not be psyched that a PR person is pitching them on their personal cell phone.
Okay. Second question from the writer is how can I avoid mistakes when I'm pitching new things?
Really, what you need to understand is what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Mm,
And once you get more comfortable with sort of the ins and outs of dealing with media, then you can feel confident and say back to your supervisor, they said no to me 3.5 weeks ago, and all they do is cover the opinion page. So it didn't really make sense for me to say anything back. But here's a different idea I'll have for this client.
I had one boss that would have us take the no's and turn them into no's with explanations,
Yeah, right. Because you want to get back to the client with a reason why.
but based on our guesses, because obviously they usually don't tell you. So it's like, oh, they
Right,
said they weren't interested because there wasn't enough blank, blank, blank. And it was kind of a way of getting the client to give you what you needed for the pitch.
right, right.
I'm not saying it's ethical, but it did
right.
work.
They said they needed data. They said they needed case studies. They said they needed clients, all of the things that you PR people always want and clients rarely
Yeah.
give. Right.
Yeah. I think, yes. I think for this person, though, because aside from keep it moving, as Laura always says, I think if you're going to keep the job, the way to manage this situation would be to over communicate with your boss, right? Here's the media list. There are 25 no's and just show them, I pitched this person on this date and followed up this date. And like I would just give
Yep.
them all of the information so that at least you're then staying in the good graces of the boss while you're at your first PR job
Yeah,
before you can
100%.
look for a new one.
I would say if there's any mistake that was made here, it was just saying, "Oh, no updates." I mean, you just should have said, "Oh, these publications wrote back to me and said no." But even go beyond that, obviously,
Yeah.
with this person, so that
Yeah.
because you're now sort of like a -1 with your this supervisor, so now over communicate, so then you can get back to 0 and then
Yeah.
even up to 1, get back
Yeah.
in the green.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I would do if I were this
I
person.
could see that being me, like, just being like, why do I need to tell anybody that, everybody said no? Like, who cares? Can't do anything with that." But there's a lot of people. I had a boss once, one of my favorites. This boss sent me out of town to do some meetings and such. I had to fly with a different part of the company. It was an in-house job.
Mhm.
And I went and I had the meeting and I met all the people and I did the thing, whatever. And then I'm like, you know, taking a car or a train back to the hotel that I was staying in. And he emails me. He's like, "Did you go to the meeting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I went to the meeting." He's like, "Well," I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm just on my way back. Like, I'm in the car back going to the hotel." He's like, "I expect you to tell me everything that happened as soon as the meeting's over so that you know for the future." I was like, "Oh my God."
Yikes.
Ended 15 minutes ago. I'm like in the car. This wasn't like cell phone texting era. This was like BlackBerry on email era. That wasn't really
Oy
something that
vey.
you did. You know what I mean? You didn't like start writing memos on your BlackBerry 5 minutes. You just didn't. This was going back decades ago.
Mm-mm,
Oh
mm-mm.
God. So that was the kind of person that you need to over communicate with. Of course, me being me got super annoyed and probably, did less of what he wanted me to do just to be like, "Mm," but
Defiant. Yeah, that adds up. I get
totally.
that.
But don't do
Um,
that.
no, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, and I had one other thought that might be helpful to this person because they're new to pitching. I will tell you from experience that when you start to get no's, that you're actually closer. So if you're like, imagine
Yeah,
you're like doing the Easter egg hunt as a little kid and you're like warmer, colder, warmer,
right.
the more no's you get, the closer you are to finding something because they at least respected your pitch enough and it wasn't so off base
They just
that
delete it.
they didn't just delete it, put you in spam. They were like,
Yeah.
"No, thank you," right? So no's are actually positive, even though it does not feel that way. And the only other thing you could potentially do as this person is look at if there's any themes or connection between the no's. Are they all the same kind of report or the same beat? Are they all the same kind of publication? And maybe that will give you the information that you need to say, okay, they all didn't want it, but they also all responded no. So what's making it close to the mark? And how can I retool this just ever so slightly to find the right person, the right outlet, the right angle, the right subject heading, whatever it is, right?
Or if you're getting no's from, like you said, a certain type of reporter, a certain
A certain
beat,
beat.
maybe if you just, right, added a few more reporters at a different angle or whatever, maybe you would get a yes. I've actually had it happen to me twice in the past couple of months with
Hmm.
bylined articles.
Yeah.
And one of them was major, a major coup. Major, like saved the account. Maybe not that far, but really, really major. And the other one was good, solid.
Mm.
And it's because we were like going to, like super on one of them, like, top tier, top tier, top tier. And then finally somebody I worked with was like, "Laura, why don't you try this publication?" And it worked like right away. But I was getting no's from top. We were getting no responses. Like they weren't ignoring us. So you're right. But then we just sort of brought it down a notch or two and then we got the yes.
Hmm. Yeah. So so try to connect the dots between the
Yeah.
no's and see there's any clue in there, of what you can do
Yeah, I mean, it is a
differently.
little bit like, fairy dust and luck.
Of
Yeah.
course, but at the same time, if I mean, and maybe there's no connection and you're just, like the crazy, you know, conspiracy theorist on the wall with the pins and the strings and the photos and so don't go overboard, but if
Like a
you
beautiful mind or something.
if you like happen to see a pattern, then that's great. Anyway, I think we beat that horse. I shouldn't say that. I think we have
No,
I
don't
think
be. No, that's horrible.
I think
Nay.
I think I have I think I've said
Nay.
I'm done.
Poor horse.
Okay, so our guest is in the waiting room. I'm going to let her in. I'm super excited to talk with Catharine today. So, our guest today is Catharine Montgomery. Catharine is the CEO and founder of Better Together, which is an agency in Washington, D.C., devoted to crisis PR. She can fill in a little more details about that as well. She has over 15 years of PR experience and has dedicated her career to supporting social justice efforts as well as bringing about meaningful change. She also brings to the table her expertise in crisis communications. And today we're going to be speaking to Catharine about the fact that both of us are going to be panelists at the upcoming Women Future Conference together. I'm actually hosting this panel session, and it's about building a trusted brand, authenticity in a time of public scrutiny and hot news cycles. We don't want to give away the farm, as they say, but we are gonna chat a little bit and give like a preview so that you guys know what's coming on our panel discussion and some of the things that Catherine will be chatting about. So just so all of our listeners know, you can catch the panel session online on Tuesday, July 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern. And there's a link in the show notes where you can register. So welcome, Catherine. That was a very long intro. Thank you for enduring my mini monologue.
Thanks for that introduction.
Of course,
Happy-
of course. So happy to have you here. And I know Better Together is a newer venture for you. So I'm a little bit curious to hear about your journey as a new agency owner and how that's coming together. But I also want to sort of dive into like a preview of what we're going to chat about at the conference.
Yeah, I will say that it's a roller coaster. I'm sure a lot of people would say that, but you never know what you're going to get day to day. I wouldn't have it any other way. It challenges me in ways I would have never thought of. And so it's been a journey and a good one.
I love that. I'm excited for you. Well, congrats on Better Together and that coming together. It's really exciting. And I'm also really curious to hear your perspective on how things are going in the industry, given the current political landscape, the economic landscape, the socio-political landscape, like the introduction of AI, where it's amalgamating wrong information about certain things. Like I'm really curious to kind of just, give you the floor to talk about what you're seeing and what's popping up for you as current trends or issues that you think are worth discussing and everybody knowing about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate to say this, but it's a show.
Yeah. No,
And
you can for sure say that.
okay. But things are all over the place. It feels like we go through this all the time. It's always like this, especially
Yeah.
in the US. Like things are just always chaotic.
Yeah.
I would say that there's a lot of space for business development for a social impact focused communications agency because it's never
Sure.
really going away. And
Yeah.
the check the box feeling I think that a lot of companies had a few years ago, especially when George Floyd was murdered, is kind of coming to an end, and that you have to be authentic about what you're actually doing, and people
Yes.
aren't just going to let you get by with I'm going to donate $1 million to X, Y, and Z, and then you don't do it, and then everybody forgets. I think that's changing a little bit, and so
Yeah.
these are having to figure out how to handle the political side of, oh, I can't say DEI, but oh, I
Yeah.
have customers I want to sell to, and they're not going to just let me get away with it being unsustainable or, trafficking humans to do work, like whatever it is.
Right.
So I think where the world's changing in the way that we view DEI and how we say it and how we reference it. And a lot of
Yeah.
companies, like corporations and their board meetings and different conversations, they've started using inclusivity or, just words that don't use the phrase DEI because that's been politicized. And so that's something
Mm.
as well that we've been seeing. We actually have a client who, before it even started coming out in media that people were using different terminology were going a different direction, which was really fascinating. And I didn't even know what they were doing. I was like, why are they using these different words? But it's like they had the foresight of, hey, we still have to focus on what DEI stands for. We just can't say the words anymore because people are going to, not respond to it like they have in the past years. So those are some of the latest topics happening.
How do you now talk about it without sounding
It's really
tone deaf or emotionally insensitive or whatever it is?
it's like not using the three terms together.
I got it.
Some people are just talking about belonging or just the inclusivity part is, only used instead of we're going to talk about equity and diversity at the same time. So I think
Right.
if you start just using one of the terms or our products are inclusive, our services are inclusive of others, like those are ways of saying it, but you're encapsulating everything that DEI has always meant. It's going to take time to educate the public about that, and make sure that they understand that what your new initiatives are, they are, have the same underlining meaning, and you're not just moving away from that altogether, but just the terminology, which,
Right.
DEI was something before we used DEI. It was something before that. It's going to be something after this. Like, so
Yeah.
as long as we just keep moving forward in a genuine way, then we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Do you have advice to brands or that you offer clients when they've decided, okay, we do want to, we want to take a stance for this thing, whatever it is, knowing that it might be a point of contention
among some consumers or among some clients or fill in the blank, right? Patients, et cetera. Depends on the industry. But do you have sort of guidelines that you walk them through to make sure that they're making smart decisions around it?
Yeah, I feel like the elements of PR are like the same if you're, talking about social impact or, consumer goods or anything like that. It's that know your audience. So, draft messaging that is targeted toward each of your audiences and what they kind of expect from the brand. So
Hmm.
they're ones who are, they're okay if you don't kind of meet the goals or do exactly what you said, like have messaging for them. And then just showing through action what you've done um, and changing that up depending on who you're speaking with, I would say. So it's like the fundamentals of how you would
Hmm.
respond in certain situations where things may have gone sideways
Right.
are, pretty much the same for any type of brand that you'd be working with. It does get a little bit more sensitive when you are talking about people's like, social issues and what they really care about deep down. And it's not just, oh, I bought this, bag, or, I'm watching this show on TV, or, Amazon Prime Day is coming up and I, didn't get my, t-shirt or whatever it is. It's really impacting people what they care about.
Yeah, fair.
Is that what people buy
Um,
on Amazon Prime Day?
I don't know. That's so funny. The example cracks me up. Like that's something to really get mad about. Who wants to wear that t-shirt? Anyway, um, have you seen any new sort of avenues of crisis relations pop up in the wake of the rise of AI?
Oh gosh, yes. It's public knowledge, but United
Yeah.
Healthcare for years, but they've been using AI to determine who should receive a health insurance coverage for years now. So say like you broke your leg, you went to the doctor, they said you need physical therapy for, 6 months.
Mhm.
And the doctor writes a note, like your insurance should cover it. And the AI tool that United Healthcare would use, so they're like, oh no, everything looks fine for you. Like we'll cover 3 months. And the doctor's,
Mhm.
well, no, like you need to cover all of it. This is what I'm recommending for them to heal. And they're like, no, we'll kind of cover three. So then it covers three, and the person is not okay. And that's just like a minor example, but people, especially older people, have been dying from this. And so they're now being sued in Michigan for relying on this AI tool to say what medical coverage people need. And so that's one example of
That's interesting.
AI doing that. And then
Yeah.
there's, obviously the biases that generative AI has that, aren't really being talked about much, but are very obvious. And this is I mean, for a long time, you would go to the airport, do your little eye thing. And I know for me personally, a lot of times back in the day, I wouldn't even pick up my facial features because they weren't trained on, people of color. And so it would take me going like back and forth and sideways, and then it'd be like, sorry, like we're gonna have to use your fingerprints or something like that. And so I know those tools have gotten a lot better, but technology right now is just like go go go, let's put it out, see what happens. Oh wait, it's biased, like oh it's racist a little, like it's sexist a little, like yeah. So
Right.
it needs to be the opposite of let's build born inclusive technology that's from the ground. Oh, we're thinking about these biases in them and then releasing the technology. And I know that's so hard for tech companies because they want to be the first. But there have been a lot of issues. The thing that I think is worrisome though is that people aren't reacting enough to make it where companies care enough to change it. So yeah, it might be in the news for, a day, a week or so, but it goes away and then they can just keep creating the technology because right now people are more excited about the technology than the making sure that the technology works for everyone. And
Yeah.
especially when it comes to healthcare or getting a loan or, can I buy this house? Like whatever, things like that that really impact
Mhm.
people. It's really important that we get it right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. In terms of like ChatGPT, where every once in a while the AI is wrongly amalgamating information into some sort of falsehood, as we've seen recently, have you had any clients who have been almost like the new version of the SEO disaster, right? Where you need to push down the findings that are unwanted. Have you had any of that happen with clients where how they're framed on Chat GPT is just completely wrong or just, not flattering in a way that you've had to address, or has that not popped up yet?
That hasn't popped up yet, but I'll say like elements of what they've been trying to do have been wrong. I'll say so.
Okay.
The clients like, oh, we want this radio script for a Black audience, and uh, ChatGPT will change it into like, "Yo, fam, we're about to eat some grub and like get down for this barbecue," and that has actually happened. And just some of them, yeah,
But
it
it's
is
not funny. It's
ridiculous.
horrifying.
But it's somebody thinks it though, because somebody put it in a large language model. Somebody on the internet is saying that that's how Black people are talking when they're going
Oh,
listening to the radio. And
oh, no.
so
Oh,
I
no.
know it's really bad, and
That
it
is
has been disappointing, and that's why my agency did a study on biases in generative AI earlier this year. So we surveyed people
I
from
love
across
that.
the U.S. on from different ages and backgrounds on like who do they hold responsible, what biases do they think are most significant, or we should be worried about, and it was the
Mm,
same ones that are perpetuated from generations. It's classism, racism, sexism, ageism. And then, tech companies do have a responsibility of building technology that is responsible. And,
mhm.
but I still don't think that the people who know about it and are thinking about those biases are pushing enough to make companies act. And so that's what we've really got to do, is put action behind the findings that we have. So
Yeah.
it's been alarming. I've just found had so many instances of biases that's what led to the survey. It was just like, why is nobody thinking about this? Oh, and one other thing, I was speaking with the engineer who actually builds these large language models, and this was a few months ago, and I was like, these systems are really biased, these generative AI tools, and he was like, no, what are you talking about? Like, they're not biased. I was like, yeah, pull up your AI image generator and type in like housekeeper. And I was like, I bet a Hispanic woman's gonna come up. And he was like, no way. And he like did it, and he was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. He like even turned it, we were virtual. He turned his screen around so I could see it. And it was like, I know, like, I know this is what happens. Like, type in criminal, you're gonna get a Black man. Like, these things are just that are so typical, and like this can't be happening. It's 2024.
We had a client for a while that she had started the Bean Path in Jackson, Mississippi, and she was actually focused on trying to help tech companies undo their bias against the Black community on the tech side. Like her job was basically
Wow.
I'm trying to find her case. I don't remember all the details. It was a minute ago. Yeah, we worked with her back in 2018. She's an Amazon AI scientist and STEM entrepreneur, and she basically was hired to be able to fix the fact that Amazon had all of these like racist biases. And then basically like her full-time job was trying to reduce all of these.
That's seems
Yeah.
impossible.
I know. I can't imagine like full-time job. But yeah, then she started this grant that was trying to help provide scholarships to small businesses and nonprofits and things like that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I that was my first introduction to it in 2018 was like, oh, that's a full-time job for Amazon to fix like racism and AI.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
that's yeah. I know
because
it's been going on for longer than that, but I
right?
just
I mean,
it
there's
didn't think about like how big of a job it is, you know?
and it's like if we knew these things were happening so long ago, why are we putting out tools in 2022 that could have addressed that?
Right.
It's really baffling.
It is baffling. Okay, I don't want to go too much over time, but I do want to ask you. I've been personally interested that with the election year happening, there hasn't been more issues that brands have gotten involved in. And I'm wondering if I'm curious your thoughts if that's because brands are just more shy about participating. I feel like I've been surprised that with the election year that it hasn't been more volatile.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like people learned from 20. 15, like, and that leading up to the election, I think it was,
Yeah.
they realized just how contentious it can be and how impactful and long term the results can be if you do engage. It does seem quieter, though. I
It
think,
does, right?
yeah.
I was so surprised. I've been so surprised the whole year. I thought it was gonna be a lot rowdier.
I think at the local levels, though, it's louder. Not at the federal level, but the state level, a lot of people are making changes, and so it's a little bit
Mhm, mhm.
quieter. You don't really hear it as much. And I think the closer we get to elections in November, the maybe the more prominent that'll be. But I feel like I know about these things because all of my clients are in those types of worlds, and so it is loud there.
Well, is there anything else that, that's trending or that you're passionate about that we haven't touched on yet today?
Social impact in general, and I am trying to see if there's opportunity to expand to London, and was there last week and thinking about the issues and causes that are, completely different from the US, but are kind of similar. Like sustainability is a big issue in London as well. So, kind of how does social impact transition from culture to culture and country to country? And I really like that challenge of changing mindsets and direction,
Mm,
be adaptable to different audiences and people. Because the US way of handling things is completely different from other countries. And so I really am interested in, that kind of diversity aspect as
mhm,
well.
mhm.
So
Very cool. Well, anything that you would like to plug on your way out, and also where can people find you to get in touch?
so go to our website, thebettertogether.agency for all information. You can get LinkedIn tips. You can get results from our biases in generative AI survey results. You can also find us on LinkedIn and at the Better Together Agency and Threads, actually, and Medium. So if you go to our website, all of the links are there.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm super excited to do this panel with you. And it was always great to connect with you. So yeah, let's definitely stay in touch outside of the podcast and the conference. But but I'm glad we got to do a formal chat as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you
All
so much
right.
for.
Thank you. All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in for the PR Wind Down podcast. Remember to submit your own agency stories and questions and share our show with your friends and colleagues. And if you subscribe and leave us a rating, it will help us reach new listeners like you. We
Can't
can't
wait to
wait to
wind
wind
down
down
with
with
you
you
again
again
next
next
time.
time about the benefits of a certain kind of technology for health. It's amazing. Okay, hold on. Okay.
Oh my God.
What would health be if health were a thing?
I think it's where Teletubbies go if they're bad after they die.
I'm so glad I asked that question.
The
This blue,
naughty Teletubbies go to
the blooper section is
Teletel.
going to be like 30 seconds long now.
It'll be better than the podcast.
I'm dead. Okay. Holy. Okay. Woo.